salute the great Peter King, who's now joining us live. Man, so are you going to write another, like, are you done writing, period? Like, you're never going to put pen to paper again. Is that true?
I don't know. I don't know, Colin. I mean, I just decided that I was not going to do my column anymore, Football Morning in America. I've been doing it online now for 27 years, and I just felt like it was probably time to step away from that. And quite honestly, I have no idea what I'm going to do. I don't have any plans. I have nobody is talking to me about a job. I mean, at some point I'll think about it, but I think I'm just going to get bored for a little while.
That's not a bad idea. Well, I spent the week in Rhode Island. I would suggest go there, eat lobster, drink some good beers. I did it for a week and I had a ball. So if you don't know what you're going to do, that's a good place to start. I want to go to here though. So when I flew back, I've been watching the documentary Dynasty, Jeff Benedict's great book, terrific reporting. Yeah. And I got to tell you, Brewski's emotional and funny. Randy Moss is hysterical. Ty Law's a stand-up comedian. Brady is raw. Episode 4 is one of the best docs I've ever seen. Belichick comes off as a little defiant, a little defensive. Ernie Adams is incredibly likable. Even Robert Kraft is a billionaire. He comes across as a guy that loves his Patriots. Apparently, Bill doesn't love how he's being viewed. And Peter, my takeaway on this entire doc is the more he won, the less he smiled. Is that Bill was so engaging early, and he's just not now. What did I miss? Was it Spygate? What happened? Go back to your 20 years ago when you covered him.
Well, I haven't talked to him since Spygate because I said and reported some stuff he didn't like. And look, I think Bill Belichick, I think we have to remember one thing about this project, and that is that, it was a project that Jeff Benedict did, and he did it with the full cooperation of the Krafts.
Yeah.
And with Robert and Jonathan and the whole and the family. And I think that it's clear there have been times and situations where there was no love lost between the Krafts and Bill Belichick. And my feeling is that if someone had done this with the entree of Bill Belichick and did it all from Bill Belichick's point of view, well, you'd probably be seeing a different side of the story. I just think it's human nature, honestly, that and I think it's human nature to look at a situation and to basically say that, look, if Bill Belichick, who is hard to love in the first place, and if he is a not necessarily tangential figure, but if he's a figure who isn't the main part of the story, you're probably going to get some parts of that don't look good for Bill Belichick.
Yeah. It's that to Andy Reid. And I said I didn't buy the Andy Reid retiring stories because I don't know what it is about offensive coaches, but many of them are play designers. And it's more of an artful, joyful experience where you're constantly having to evolve. Defensive coaches is a lot about don't turn it over, dominate the clock and field position. Offensive guys like Shanahan and Andy Reid's literally in the offseason sent me plays he's drawing up. Oh, we're going to use this one early in September. You got to see this. And I look at Andy and I think he's such an educator and teacher. It's not just Mahomes. Andy's aged very gracefully. Did Andy ever have a grumpy side or a difficult side? I know Philadelphia, but I didn't follow him when he was in his 20s, 30s. What do you make of the arc for Reid juxtaposed against Belichick?
I first met Andy Reid in 1995. I was working for Sports Illustrated. I was in Green Bay doing a story on the Packers, and he came up to me and said, and I don't remember his exact quote, but it's something like, I really wanted to do the job that you have right now. When I went to college, I wanted to write football for Sports Illustrated. And so I've known him for almost 30 years. And the one thing about Andy Reid that people, I think, don't know well enough is how incredibly imaginative he is.
Yeah.
And he's got a coach on his staff, Matt Nagy, who everybody was down on him with the Bears. But this guy is really one of the bright play researchers, play designers that there is. So much so, when they were struggling against New England in December, a play that Matt Nagy brought to Andy Reid and they put in their offense was from the 1942 Columbia Penn game in the Ivy League. They called it Heisman. And Patrick Mahomes was lined up in a three-point stance for the first time in his NFL career, not under center. And it was just a real weird play, but it jump-started their offense, and they ended up beating the Patriots that day. That is why, in my opinion, Andy Reid's borderline brilliant, because he understands that it's all not going to be pretty. And in a year when Kansas City was 15th in the NFL in scoring, instead of 1 or 2 or 3, they had trouble all year moving the ball. So you know what they did? They got really weird and cutesy and imaginative. And that guy on the screen right there, Andy Reid with Patrick Mahomes, they made it work.
You know, it's interesting. When I got into, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a baseball announcer. And my first job out of college, I was a baseball announcer. I do an inning of play-by-play for the Las Vegas Stars, Padres affiliate. Jack McKeon was the GM of the Padres, a really funny guy. And it was a dream job. And then I don't know if I lived in Vegas, it was gambling on football, but you've been in this sport long enough to know when you started, baseball had more of an imprint on the media, the fabric, and social currency in America. I'm looking at the new salary cap numbers exploding for the NFL. Peter, I could do 80% of NFL football on my show, and my ratings would go up. I monitor it to not become the NFL network. In your opinion, it can't just be the scarcity argument, because NFL's had scarcity forever. It can't just be that. I do think gambling has been jet fuel. People do not turn off bad games anymore. They just keep watching bad games. But in your opinion, baseball was here, football was here, and it's flipped. You've covered one. You love both. What do you think it is? Is there a primary reason?
I think that football is the absolute perfect television sport. It fits into a neat 3-hour window. And for so long, until last year when Theo Epstein grabbed the tiger by the tail and throttled Major League Baseball and said, we're cutting 20 minutes out of every game. And I think they're going to cut more than that. Baseball became this plodding, boring story. That's what happened to baseball. And there are too many establishment baseball guys who said there's nothing wrong with baseball.
Right.
And it took Theo Epstein to really change things. And look, maybe it's too late. I don't know. All I know is now, Colin, when I look at football and you hear people complain about having to pay $5.99 for a football game, here's the only thing I say about that. Yes, they complain. And I'm not saying that they love doing this, but why was the Miami Kansas City game that was on Peacock, why did that get significantly better numbers, even though it was pay-per-view, than the game last year, Jacksonville and the Chargers in the same time slot? I'll tell you why. Because the NFL did a smart thing. They put Mahomes on pay-per-view.
Yeah.
They put Tua on pay-per-view. They had a great game on pay-per-view. And all I'm saying is that people might get upset, but people are going to go and find and watch these games no matter where they are. That's what the NFL has on sporting society right now.
So, you know, I've talked about this for a while. It's really interesting to me. It's fascinating. The Bears are over 100 years old and have never had a great quarterback. Green Bay has had, if Jordan Love's as good as he looked at the end of the year, this will be their fourth. And he looked really good. And it is crazy. It's like they just do quarterbacks right, receivers right. It's Green Bay. Draft and develop well. And I said, I would understand if Caleb Williams did a Manning or an Elway and said, this isn't going to work for me. But
Yeah.
if he did that, and I've been told by his camp he's not going to do that. He thinks there's a way to win. It's Houston. But, I mean, Eberflus could be out if they start poorly. He could be out in 7 weeks. Do you think if knowing Chicago's history, a defensive culture, they don't have a great all-time receiver or quarterback. It's just the way poor owners, stadium issues. If you were the agent for Caleb Williams, you've been in this league forever, would you consider an Elway Manning move for him?
I wouldn't, and I'll tell you why. Because I understand that a lot of people think, oh, Chicago's the place quarterbacks go to die. And I understand that, and you've seen a lot of them do that there in Chicago. However, and first of all, Colin, I will just say I'm absolutely opposed to Chicago taking Caleb Williams because, in my opinion, you could own the next 2 drafts by trading the first pick in this draft and getting a ransom for it. And I would do that and build with 8 or 10 picks in the first 2 rounds in the next 2 years around Justin Fields, who definitely is good enough to win with. Now, having said all that, if they do make that move and they do go get Caleb Williams and they build around him, it's an eminently winnable scenario for them because they're starting to build and they do now have some pieces in place. So, and can you imagine if you're Caleb Williams, you're the first great quarterback since Sid Luckman, to walk down Michigan Avenue? It would be an amazing thing. He would be the toast of the town. He would own Chicago. Forget the Cubs. The Bears own Chicago when they're great. And I think he would have a great chance to do that.
Yeah, I'm not a Justin Fields fan, but I've had too many NFL GMs and scouting guys just tell me how good they think Caleb Williams is. And he's not flawless, by the way. He does sometimes veer toward the spectacular and not take the layups, which, by the way, Mahomes early in his career had a little bit of that, but Patrick has been so good the last 2 years, just taking underneath stuff and layups. I always say this about Jordan. Michael Jordan twice a night would make a play you'd never seen, but mostly he just hit mid-range jumpers. Mahomes, that's what Michael scored 24 of his points on mid-range jumpers. He knew, take what they give you. Mahomes has become that. Twice a game, I can't believe what I'm watching. And then 24 times a game, he throws a curl route for 9 yards.
He just makes the play that's there.
That's right.
It's brilliant.
Yeah. And
he's got the ability to do things you've never seen before, but he's so good at knowing when to take the underneath stuff.
Yep. Finally, I like Russell Wilson. I don't think he's in his prime, but I never thought the Denver situation worked. Sean can be a bit cynical, outspoken, raw. Russell is almost to a fault optimistic and hopeful. Let's ride. Can turn people off. Some people think it's inauthentic. So I didn't think the personalities worked. I think Denver's going to go get a Bo Nix or somebody out of college, and Sean's going to mold him to be his guy. But Russell to the Steelers makes sense to me, and I'll tell you why. I want you to throw back if you disagree with this or agree. Steelers works. He doesn't have to set a culture in Pittsburgh. Tomlin does that. They've got young receivers. Both are a bit, in my opinion, outspoken and at times immature. Russell's the opposite. He's mature, he's committed, he's efficient, he's refined. You can't send a Justin Fields to Pittsburgh. He hasn't refined himself yet. Russell's all refined, all efficient, all accurate, all mature, married, kids, grown up. I think Russell in Pittsburgh, I love their roster. I think he's perfect. I think it works. What say you on that,
Colin? I have been saying this for a month. It's perfect what you just said. And the reason is, think about it. The Pittsburgh Steelers can employ Russell Wilson for $1.2 million this year. It is a prove-it season for Russell Wilson. They were down on him in Seattle at the end. He goes to Denver. It doesn't work, in year one. And it really doesn't work in year two. So now everybody's saying, okay, is Russell Wilson done or can he be salvaged? So Russell Wilson goes to Pittsburgh. And look, it makes no sense for the Steelers to go into this coming season, with the two quarterbacks, the two incumbents, Pickett and Rudolph that they have. Makes no sense whatsoever. Not in a division with Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and Deshaun Watson. It's nonsensical to do that. You almost get a free look for a year with Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
And what if he's really good?
Mm-hmm.
What if he's really good married to Arthur Smith for this year? And then they end up keeping him. It's like they got a free quarterback who one day is probably going to the Hall of Fame. And just, to me, it makes all the sense in the world. And I really hope that it happens.
All right, Peter. So you get to sleep in. I read your column this morning. I thought I got up early. 3 a.m, for the love of God. You got to, you know what? No caffeine after 4 in the afternoon. I know you love coffee. No more late caffeine. You need to sleep through the night, hydrate, hang out with your dogs and your family.